Wait, we didn't get that on video? Who's gonna even believe me it happened? What a waste of time. Hey everyone, how's it going? I'm Kira Wackett. Thanks for joining me for another video as we work to empower and equip you with the confidence and skills to write your own story so that you can live a life on purpose. In this episode, we're talking about the shame-driven pressure to prove our worth by always having something to show for what we do or validating ourselves based on how others respond to us. The idea that something only happens if we have something to show is one of the biggest ploys for our shame brain to consume us. Have you ever been about to work out only to find that your watch was dead, so you couldn't record the activity and you genuinely sat there thinking whether or not, is this worth it? How about if you did something nice, or maybe you had a great idea and then it went unnoticed or unacknowledged? What did it feel like not to be acknowledged? Did it take away the feeling of doing something kind or doing something good or having that idea in the first place? Do you keep a running list of everything you do around the house, ready to pull it out at a moment's notice with any disgruntled or frustrated remark your partner may make, or when you feel dismissed or unseen? Have you ever made a post on social media to ensure others had a particular view of you, maybe knew what you were doing, or to protect your reputation? Let's consider any social justice movement. Did you ever post for your ego so that you didn't worry what people thought about the work you were doing or what you felt? If the answer to any of these questions is no, I've never cared about being acknowledged, I don't need recognition or celebration, and never feel like my ego is screaming at me to jump into the spotlight, one, I highly doubt you're being 100% honest with yourself. Two, if you are, that's amazing. Stop this video, you don't need to do any more work on this process, and continue on your way. And really, if you are at that point, reach out to me because I would love to hear from you so I can learn. But my guess is that you're all still listening because it's impossible not to care what other people think or how we're perceived. Because we all have an ego, and we as humans are driven by connection and comparison. The ego is the part of our brain that works to make sure we're seen. Works directly with our shame brain and is really trying to alleviate threats to our being othered in the world by pushing us into the light at any cost. It's not always obvious. Sometimes it's subtle, like making sure to do something nice when others see you, or naturally happening upon an anecdote that lets others know something you've done or explain something negative. It may be the thing that drives you to share your workout on social media, or ultimately leads you to stop caring about or investing in something because you weren't getting the recognition you wanted or deserved. The problem is not that we care about what others think. In community-driven settings, this is important. We consider and factor in the people around us because they're important to us. The problem is that it's gone too far. It's no longer about factoring people in or considering others in the way we show up. It's about making our choices and defining our worth only by how others see us. What's the perception of me that others have versus who am I and how am I showing up in the world authentically? We live in a world where we associate value with recognition and external validation. The number of followers that you have on social media, the public accolades that you attain, the performance you perfect guides your sense of self. We're inundated with these messages from the time that we're born. I even see it in the way that we talk to Everly. We ask her to show or say something to show others what she can do versus letting her be and letting them happen upon her as she decides to share herself. So I want to take a minute and consider, how is this serving us? If we're only good enough if others can attest to what we do, is that genuinely fulfilling? If we need the recognition of others to trust in ourselves, isn't that changing the focus away from who we are and turning it into what we do or how we can perfect a performance for what others see? And if we're doing good purely to elevate ourselves in this hierarchy or this ladder, is that the kind of work we want to do in the world? For example, if people posted a black square on June 2nd, 2020 for Blackout Tuesday, can you be sure it's because they considered the implications of the post and how it does or doesn't serve the greater social justice work that needs to be done in our country? Did they turn inward and think about the way that they engage in racist behavior, or how they might be able to extend their support beyond the four walls of that square? Or did they do it because everyone else did? And that's what you should do. If we pursue the credit at work at all costs so that we can be seen, celebrated, and get ahead, how is that in service of the work itself? Now, this is not to discredit the movement and the vital work all of us need to do to dismantle the systems of isms that our country has been founded upon. Black people, trans people, differently abled people, people without homes, they all deserve more. This is not about the need to do work on a systems level and individual level. Those areas are both necessary and important, and they're outside of the scope of this video today. This video is about asking ourselves the hard question about when we're being performative and when we're truly living in our values. The only way to put the good of the world ahead of our egos and make a real and lasting change is for all of us to exist in a world where we don't constantly fear that we're going to be left behind if we don't get ahead. This is what drives the isms in our country and keeps us climbing the ladder, as Sonia Renee Taylor talks about in her book, The Body is Not an Apology, which we'll be reading in my summer 2022 book club, just in case you're interested in connecting and diving deeper on this topic and so much more about the way that we engage in the world and how radical self-love and healing can show up and be a part of this process. This is what leads us all to be plagued by and existing in a lens of shame. We feel we're only worthy if, fill in the blank, which forces us to prove our worth, often at others' expense and without considering the impact or effect on everyone else. So can we all just agree? You don't need to post or record every time you work out. Work out for you, and don't take it too seriously. It's just a workout. If you choose to share it, you have every right to, but consider who it's for. You don't need recognition every time you do something nice for people to see you. Genuine kindness shows up in everything we do, not just in our dedicated and directed efforts. You matter, even if everyone doesn't know what you do, or you're not given credit for every thought or idea. Life isn't meant to be lived in a silo, so stop worrying about rising to the top of yours. We're all building off each other, and trust me, if you have one great idea, you're gonna have more. There's no shortage of greatness in anyone unless we allow ourselves to get trapped in this mess of our shame. You don't need millions of followers to add value to the world. You don't need everyone and everything you do to be accounted for and acknowledged. Be consistent, show up, and do good in the world every day because it's who you want to be and it's reflected in what you do. Your ego is a part of you. The drive to be noticed is always going to exist within you. And I'm not asking you to get rid of that because this is an unmovable object, as one of my old therapists used to say. Instead, rework our relationship with it and let it inform rather than guide us in our lives. So here are 5 ways that you can begin to do this in your everyday life. First, notice where and with who you seem to desire the most recognition. Is it at home, your partner, at work? The desire for recognition is inversely correlated to our sense of safety and security in that given role and relationship. 2, recognize what a you problem is. Doing something nice and then not getting recognition for it is a you problem. You're the one upset about it, you're the one feeling threatened without it, and this feeling is what gets projected onto others. If you did it for the recognition, then this is on you to work through your shame and codependence. If you feel angry, mad, hurt, etc. about the lack of acknowledgement, you're focusing on the wrong side. Why did you do it? Was it in line with your values? Did you do it because it was important to you? Then let that be what fills you up. No one owes you anything because you did X. If you helped out on their project, they're not on the hook to help you. If you did something nice for someone on their birthday and they forget yours, that's okay. Let it go. 3, shift from seeing the self as content to the self in context. I did a longer video on this that I'm going to be sure to put a link to in the show notes. But for now, the idea of self as content focuses on what we do. It's about boiling down everything into a bullet point list or trying to capture it all in a CV submitted for the position of being good enough. Self in context is about seeing yourself in the overall context of your life. It's about aligning with your values and considering how what we do is a reflection of who we are and the ways we want to show up for ourselves and for the world. It makes space to consider when we're exhausted or burnt out and pivots our expectations and time, money, and energy investments in ways that support rather than deplete us. The pursuit of celebration is about accumulating bullet points. Let that go. Doing the dishes was important because you want your family to live in a clean home and it feels better to be in a clean space. That contribution was significant regardless of how many people thanked you for doing it. 4, validate the feeling and let it go. You get to feel frustrated, hurt, sad, disappointed. Whatever that feeling is, you have the right to it. Feel it fully, make space for it, then release it. Journal, meditate, take a walk, breathe into it. Whatever you want or need to do to let it go, do it. I like to use a technique called cognitive diffusion, which I also made a video about and we'll put a link to in the show notes. Choosing to hold on to this only guarantees that you're going to get stuck in pain. And the person who suffers from that is you. And then the 5th step is to actively participate in activities without sharing them. I've made it a habit unintentionally of working out without my watch because I've stopped putting so much emphasis on needing to record everything I do. Sure, I do like to track my activity. It's beneficial, especially after Ev was born, to see my progression in postpartum rehab. But suddenly, the data became more of a pressured obsession. I wanted to close my rings every day or be sure to check certain boxes to get a perfect record. Why? For who? And how is that sustainable? This is what happened to me in other ways too, such as recounting to Jordan everything I've done in a day to clean up the house or make sure he knows just how hard at night it was with Everly and the mess to clean up after a tough night. It's valid I want to share hard things with him, but again, asking myself for what purpose? Focusing on the want for him to acknowledge my night was hard is 1, setting me up to need that validation to feel okay, and 2, is not at all considering the night he had or how it might make him feel that he couldn't be here to help me with it. And 3rd, it actually creates a separation between us. We call it the me versus you mentality. Instead, I've been working on doing activities without tracking them, trying to do nice things and not tell people, even now, where the urge is high and the examples could be helpful in this video. There's a saying, do good and forget about it. For me, I'm taking that into all accounts of my life. Do good, be true to who I want to be, and trust that I have worth and value even when I live in a world that makes me doubt it without proof. All right, now it's time to reflect. What came up for you? Is there anything surprising for you as you think about this? Where do you find yourself pushed most by your ego? And which one of these ideas stands out most? Is there a way that you can start to bring this into your daily life and to think about or reconsider the way that you engage in your activities? So as you all know, writing things down and sharing them out loud is one of the best ways to increase our buy-in and reinforce the work we're doing. So leave a comment below with what stood out to you and open up a dialogue for deeper connection and conversation. Be sure to take a look at the video notes to access all the resources I mentioned throughout the video, including links to the videos on cognitive diffusion and self in context versus self as content. If you like what you're hearing, be sure to subscribe to save yourself the time and energy of having to check back for new content and get an alert whenever there's new awesomeness to check out. And if you want to stay in the know on all of the happenings of Adversity Rising, click the link in the show notes to sign up for my email list, where I send you exclusive content every other week, as well as give you updates on any new content that I've released. Thank you so much for being here with me today. I'm so excited for all of you to dive deeper into this topic of self-reflection and intention clarification. Remember, you have the right to author your own story. So let's go get that pen back from shame.